This meeting is being recorded.
What's going on, guys? It's the Bigs Podcast, episode number 70, part two. Thanks so much to Mike and Jason who took care of part one. The first 8 picks of the draft have been fully reviewed. With me tonight to review the second half of the draft, our commissioner and the 3-time Bigs champion, Ben Nisman. Benny, we just got done watching our New York Mets put away game one. How are you feeling?
Feeling great, Joe. Just happy to be back, as you know. Happy opening day to everybody. I'm so excited to break down the rest of this draft. Unbelievable job by Mike and Jason on that first episode. If you haven't checked it out, you absolutely should. And we're going to break down the rest of it for you. It's obviously everyone's looking at the scores right now and they're making a big deal. I know they're looking a little lopsided, but it's an 11-day matchup. There's a whole lot of things to be done before we have the scores settled. So, Joe, as always, I'm going to ask you, lead it off for us, buddy.
Let's get going, boys. We're going to kick this thing off with Christian Wood, Pineda Coladas, who came in at the 9 spot. And I'm going to go ahead and go the first 5 or 7 rounds. We'll go 7 rounds here, and we can pick and choose a guy to talk about. He started with Rafi Devers, Corbin Burns, Jordan Romano, Zach Wheeler, then Tommy Edman, Jose Abreu, and Logan Gilbert. Now, Ben, those first 7 pieces there, 3 starters, a reliever, and 3 bats. Is there anybody that sticks out for you?
Well, I like that he secured the closer, Joe. Like, I'm glad that he jumped on that train and made sure he got a bona fide guy. So that was something key that I noticed that he did that was pivotal. And of course, Jose Abreu in the 6th. I mean, he knows that pissed off a lot of people, and that was well timed. So I give him a lot of credit. That's an important guy to have in Houston. So those 2 picks in general, obviously, you know, and we'll talk about it more of the number, his first round pick. What'd you think of that?
You know what? It was kind of interesting that A, it happened right in front of you. B, happened at the pick you were at last year, if I'm not mistaken.
It's very possible. I can't recall exactly what pick I had,
but it was very interesting. It was right in front of you because we will talk about this here in a minute. I don't hate the idea of going out and getting one of those perceived helicopters off the volcano early so that you don't have to worry about it again. And it shows he doesn't draft another third baseman at all. Literally not another third base eligible guy is in the draft. So
okay,
he gets off the mountain and he's done.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
In this first 7 here, I feel like it's just a whole lot of really safe picks. Corbin Burns, Romano, Wheeler. You know what you're getting out of these guys.
Yeah.
When we move a little bit further down here, the next few group here, Wilson Contreras, Jose Leclerc, Alex Verdugo, Jorge Lopez, Oscar Gonzalez, Brady Singer, and I'll throw these final 2 on, Javi Baez and Nathan Eovaldi. That's through the 15th round.
There's a lot of guys that are just, you got a gut instinct for, I think, you know, because it's a mix of body of work and young, up and coming. So,
I mean, I love the Wilson Contreras pick at 120. I really did like that one particularly.
Yeah. Oscar Gonzalez, it's an impressive bold to me, an outfielder. I get that the numbers were impressive, you know, but there was just so many outfielders for me that, you know, if I wasn't going to get like one of those studs, I was going to wait a little bit.
I hear you. I don't like Javi Baez at all, but after the pick 200, I can't really fault it, especially if that's actually now your starting shortstop because Tommy Edman needs to be your second baseman. He went very pitcher heavy throughout. You'll notice like every other or third round is a pitcher. There was no like string of hitters he put together and then had to put together a string of relievers later or whatever.
Right.
You know,
right.
What that says though is that this team is incredibly balanced.
Sure.
As we get toward the back end here, Ramon Laureano in 16, Colton Wong in 17, Tanner Houck, Jesse Winker, Aaron Ashby, Manuel Margot, Ryan Stanek, Trey Mancini, and finishes out with Chris Flexen in 24, CJ Abrams in 25, and Lucas Luetke in 26. This feels like it all fell apart to me.
Yeah, it's perspective. I
Yes.
can't really make that good of an assessment because I'm looking at it. I'm just I don't know. Like I have no idea on a lot of these guys. There a lot is just shooting from the hip. Maybe I'm just gut. And he likes these guys, and it was a trend of going to get your guys. Like you had mentioned in the draft, like Mike and Jason had said, like at a certain point, it just seemed like a lot of people had a gut instinct about a certain guy, and they were saying, no matter what, in this round, I want this person to get back to me. And the only way I'm going to do it is ensuring it is getting the guy right here and
right now. Exactly. Where do you see, I mean, I'll be honest. If I look at the back end of this draft, there's nothing that sticks out that absolutely stinks. Look, the outfield is covered twice over.
Right.
With Laureano double eligible, Manuel Margot triple eligible, and Jesse Winker, the one piece that Laureano isn't. Right. Outfield covered in those three guys without touching your starters.
And I'm fine, honestly, with Verdugo, where he got him and being his number one outfielder. I'm fine. I'm totally fine with him being that. If your number 2 and number 3 then has to be, I mean, at least one of them has to be a sure thing then. Because right now he's going with Verdugo in left, Manuel in center, Oscar Gonzalez in right. Laureano is obviously a starter probably. And then Jesse Winker, Trey Mancini, and Pesky. It's solid. I'm personally.
All of the pieces make sense. I just don't like the pieces. Does that make sense? Like,
yes, I think it does. I think I'm saying the same
together. It's a puzzle.
Yeah. You don't like the piece. It could work, but in general, I feel like if these guys were on an actual baseball team, you'd be like, okay, this could work. We can win with this team. But as a fantasy team, I'm just not sure. I mean, I just don't know how consistent the numbers are going to be from these names that I'm looking. And obviously, he'll dig into free agency. I know that. And he might get a winner out of Trey Mancini or Jesse Winker in a comeback year. Like, these things can happen. So
maybe Javi Baez does pop 25 homers and steal 20 bases, and all of a sudden he's worthwhile again.
Yeah. And isn't it interesting? We're going to talk about this cast, as being like the top 4 on the call sheet. Obviously Devers is number 1. We're talking about offense only.
Yeah.
Abreu is 2. And then Baez would have to be at least number 3
in the
or
conversation
number 4 in the conversation.
Yeah, because Tommy Edmonds not going to hit you any home runs.
Yeah, I would
say Wilson Contreras is probably in that conversation too.
Yes, those would probably be the 4. Wilson, Baez, Devers, and Abreu.
And do I believe that 4 is a playoff 4? No, not today on March 30th. Right?
Going into the season based on body work on paper.
Yeah. I love Abreu where he got him. That's going to be my steal of this draft. But what do you have for a steal of this draft? As you now drink a sip of water, and I'll stall for you. Go ahead, buddy. Winker.
Yeah. I really do. Yeah, I would say him because that is definitely a potential comeback guy. I mean, I thought he was like a 27-year-old prodigy in 2021. And he was just locked in. And you saw glimpses of it in 2020 as well for what you're going to make of 2020.
Right.
But I would definitely say that in the 19th, was it? Yeah.
Yeah, almost picked 300. 297 for Jesse Winker here.
Yeah.
And if, you know what, if he gives you even 75 to 80% of what you saw in 2021 during the breakout, then you're going to return a nice value here that deep.
Yes. And asking for 70% of that isn't asking that much after, a down year, if you hope the law of averages.
Right. Right.
He breaks out.
What about a reach? Do you see somebody that he overpaid for? I mean, my question is, do you have to pay at all to own Chris
Here's the
Flexen?
thing. It might be, it's easy to say right now because he didn't get a win today. He got a loss today in Burns. But in general, when I saw the starting pitching run happening, as you noticed, I didn't take place in that. I let it go because I saw a lot of great starters this year. And I thought if I could get Cortez, or I'll just say right now, Pablo Lopez, as my ace, I could still build a good rotation. I think I did. We'll see what you think of that. But that would be one for me, Burns. I wouldn't have necessarily jumped on that, even though I'm okay with getting a starting pitcher second round. That makes sense to me. I don't know, with that Milwaukee offense, that concerns me. I mean, he's not going to get a ton of wins unless he's awesome every single time, I think.
I think context is very important when it comes to some of these picks as well. When you talk about the fact that he took one during the run, he took it at the back end of the run. Almost every single person in front of him had taken a starting pitcher. You and Jason, we'll talk about shortly, did not take it in front. Everybody else did. And I'm sure he's thinking, well, all right, Corbin Burns might be the best pitcher in baseball, so I'll go ahead and grab him here. And
yeah, I don't necessarily believe that.
I don't either. But if you're getting him as the 6th or 7th dude off the board, that's pretty good value if you intended to do it in the first place, or you see a run happening and don't want to miss out. It's just the same thing happens.
When I see
a guy, hang on. The same thing happens immediately after Bobby takes Clase. He sees 3 picks go in front of him of me, Costas, and Josh. Actually, there were a few more in there. Mike Sherman took Shohei Ohtani, and Ari took Shane Bieber after Bobby took it. Now, the train did not need to leave the station, but Christian chose to make it leave the station by taking Jordan Romano at 41, because immediately after we see Josh Hader and then Ryan Presley. So he kicked off a run and kind of finished a run as well. And there's something to that. There's something to the idea of I need to get on these things when they're happening.
Sure. And I think a lot of this team might go as the rotation goes.
Agreed.
Like I said, if he didn't take Burns and he got another hitter, I might like the cast a little bit more with the offense, because he probably picked a pretty darn good hitter in the second round.
Right.
But if the rotation holds up, Zach Wheeler, Corbin Burns, Logan Gilbert, Jordan Romano as his first closer. The rest of the rotation is Brady Singer, Nate Eovaldi, German Marquez. It's a nice 1-2. If you can get the same kind of stuff that you're hoping to expect out of these guys.
Yep. We shall see. Benjamin.
Go ahead.
Okay.
I just wanted to throw in, again, a sneaky pick could be a guy like Colton Wong. A sneaky pick could be a Trey Mancini in the 23rd. That could be the steal. If he's getting regular playing time, and he could do like 2019 when he first came up, he's still young enough that I think he can have a breakout year. Sure. So in general, I think this was an interesting team, that he put together here. But I just wonder if maybe he could have thrown in a way to get another big hitter here, because I am concerned about that offense in general. But yeah, he's a smart manager.
I think the pairing of Devers and Abreu can carry him, but not getting a power hitter where Tommy Edman lies in the draft in the 5th round, that probably shot down his offensive trajectory over the long term.
Did you have a reach?
My reach, no, not really. I mean, you don't have to. Here's the thing. A lot of this draft, I feel like, is just safe, really nice value picks that you know what you're getting out of these guys. And listen, is Oscar Gonzalez a question mark? Yeah, but he's at 184.
So that would be your steal?
No. My steal was Jose Abreu at 88. I was hoping to get him 4 picks later, and it just broke me. I'll be honest with you. I don't know. I really don't think there's a reach on this team.
Really? Just pick one. If there had to be one.
I don't know. I never liked Tommy Edman, so Tommy Edman at 73.
Okay, that's the one.
Sure. All right. Let's move on here, Benjamin, because it's time to talk about your team. I looked into my father eyes. I love it. You picked 10th overall this year, one spot, I think, behind where you were last year. And you got Juan Soto, man. Nice first-round pick. I took it last year at 3, so 7-pick value there. Juan Soto, Nolan Arenado, Josh Hader, Camilo Doval, Will Smith, Nestor Cortez. That's the first 6 there. And I feel like that's a good spot to pause. 2 closers, the starting pitcher, a really, really good catcher, unlike Ben Nisman in years past, and the 2 offensive horses of Soto and Arenado. Speak to it.
I wanted to put together a stronger offense, or at least one that I could believe in more going into the draft. I try to get guys that we know the names and they've done it for enough time that I believe in them at least. And then, yeah, as you can see, I went with bullpen first, and I waited, obviously, to the last thing that you mentioned, and there was my first starter at 6.
Nestor Cortez at 6, 87th overall. I thought it was great value at the time. Not your best pick. There will be more. In the 7th round, you took Daniel Bard as your 3rd closer. Then Nathaniel Lowe, Brandon Nimmo, Jeff McNeil, John Birdie, Luis Arraez, and Josh Bell. This is where I pause again, because that's where you put your offense together. That's your whole offense is right there. Nate Lowe, Birdie, McNeil, and Arraez and Bell. Like that's
and Nimmo.
5 infielders and a left field eligible, left field, right field guys.
And Nimmo was in,
and Nimmo in center field.
Center
like
field.
This is your offense.
Yeah,
and
this is
you
my
put it
group.
together in the middle rounds.
Mm-hmm.
I think the best pick here is the last one I mentioned, Josh Bell at 202 in Cleveland. I think that's a monster pick. I really do.
Thank you. It was probably one of my favorite picks that I got, because I was staring at it and I was like, wow, a lot of guys, I guess, weren't grabbing him because they had their first baseman. So they were thinking in other directions. I'm sitting here going, I don't know how many power hitters with not 500 at-bats, 550 at-bats, and 103 or so strikeouts.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, league average is probably at some point 129 for 500 at-bats. So,
yeah.
Okay, I get another 10% of at-bats, and it's still 103?
Yeah.
So
what I am concerned here, Ben, is the fact that you have Nathaniel Lowe and Josh Bell. Sure. Is there a concern about playing 1-1 at utility most days, or are you thinking that this will be a little bit more fluid?
Yeah, I think it is more fluid than anything. I got to keep it consistent, at least for now. I mean, this was like what you said. I built the offense. This is the group. So I don't want to tinker too much. I've gotten into trouble doing that. And
many times, haven't we?
And you're going to leave stuff on the bench, and everyone should know this is going to happen no matter what. It's good to have an offensive bench. I think some people play without one, and they just want to have 9, and they go in different directions. And we're going to see a lot of different strategies, again, like we do every single season. But I was just going with a lot of pop, and I tried to we'll see. Let's go into the next couple.
Because here's the thing. We have mentioned that you built your offense, and I had mentioned that you took 3 closers. But to this point, round 14 is where you get your SP2. By now, everybody's put up 3 at least. You're putting up your SP2, and it's in round 14. Miles Michaelis, Merrill Kelly, Jamison Tyone. The meme lives on with the smooth Carlos Santana, Andrew Chafin in round 18, Charlie Blackmon in round 19, and that's where I'll pause it again here. This was the end of the rotation. This was the 2, 3, and 4 back to back to back. Why these 3?
I saw that Merrill Kelly was just putting up a good ERA in the amount of innings. He seemed like a horse. And I feel like because we've heard the name so long that he's been able to stay in the big leagues and at least get good enough innings for a team that the Arizona Diamondbacks could survive with him for a while. And I just wanted to have another horse-type guy, a guy that I think could hold down a decent ERA over a full season. And I know that most of the time, if I go to him, he's at least going to give me innings that are maybe not necessarily quality innings, but over time, I think I'll know what I'm getting, if that makes sense. And if I play him in the right spots, because you don't need to start every starter, and I think everyone that's watching this is thinking this like, they didn't necessarily
You
think
didn't think of it.
Right. But I think they should, because, obviously if he's going into Petco, even though Petco is a pitcher's park, I might not want that start, especially if they're hot. So maybe I bench him that day. But I still liked I didn't mind the strikeouts. There was some good things going on. So I like Mikolas. I like Kelly as a 2-3. And I've been a fan of Jamison Tyone. Same thing. I just felt like he was a horse. And I kind of know what I'm getting from these guys. And if I have to tinker a little bit with them, so be it.
Well, it does round out your draft here. Round 21, we go Nick Martinez, Taijuan Walker, Michael Wacha, Alex Wood, Andre Palante, and Randall Grichuk. You pick up 3 more dudes, all with good seasons last year, all with warts and question marks. But again, you don't have to play them every time out. And if there's somebody in the league that happens to be looking for starting pitching in the trade market, you now have assets.
Yes,
I loved it. I loved it. I really thought you crushed the back half of this draft, honestly.
Thank you. Thanks. I figured, okay, now I have a rotation, but now I have depth. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of where I was going. Just in case some of these guys aren't what I'm hoping them to be. Maybe Mikolas doesn't do what he did last year.
Maybe Taijuan Walker, who ends up being your 2 this year. That's okay.
Sure. That's what I'm saying. Like, a lot of these guys could be interchangeable. Mm-hmm. And you could see all of a sudden, each one of them could be the 2, 3, or 4.
Yeah.
I can't necessarily point my finger on who's the star, and that includes Nestor Cortes. Because we saw one great year. I wouldn't be shocked if he's not good. I'll be disappointed. But
of course.
But on any of these guys, I wouldn't necessarily be shocked.
My steal for you, as I said, was Josh Bell after 200. That was incredible. My reach, dude, here's the only thing I will say about Camilo Doval at 55. Like, they brought in Taylor Rogers, whose twin brother is on the team, and you didn't get him. If you had gotten Taylor Rogers too later on in the draft, I wouldn't give a shit about Camilo Doval on your team. But the problem is Taylor Rogers is on my team. So I just wanted
and honestly, I was going for him, Joe. It was a target. It's just I got to it too late. I was paying attention. I saw it keep going by, but
yeah. In any event, like I said, you crushed the back half. We should see you compete every single week as you always do. But I'm a little concerned with. I think it's going to compete. I think it's a hell of a lot better than what you had last year offensively. Fact, period, barring any ridiculous injuries, you're going to have 2 dudes on this team that are going to be vastly superior to any season anybody put up last year on that team.
Right, for me. Yeah.
That's from Soto, from Arenado, and probably from Will Smith too.
Yeah. And I got a couple of me guys, like
Yeah.
players that that I
You
would
got
draft.
both batting champions and the steals leader back to back to back. Credit.
Yeah. I would say my steal was Arise as far as being like, okay, I got one of the batting champions. I was surprised the other one fell to me. I felt like that was
rounds. 2 full rounds he fell. People just kept passing on him because, oh, he's in Miami and he's not important anymore. And if he still bats 300, he's still batting 300.
Yeah, absolutely. It'll help.
No.
And
All right.
my reach.
Your reach.
Yeah. Well, at the time, because obviously now we see that Dana Bard is on the IL. So I would say it's John Burby, because his role isn't necessarily finite. We just know that when he gets on, he's going for the bag.
Right.
So if he can win me that stat in a week or two, that might be worth the 11th pick. It obviously depends on who the opponent is. It obviously depends on the timing of the week, and when it happens. But I'm banking that this guy does have a week or two where he can win me that stat.
Absolutely. Like I said, you should compete every single week and every single stat just based off of the team you've built, barring injury, obviously. But again, we've seen that you can manage injury as well.
Right. Thank you. But obviously, you could see a situation where this team could fold. You say it will probably compete, but
if you're gonna fail, it's gonna be because of the pitching staff. Like somehow all of these dudes are bad, or most of these dudes are bad, and some of them are hurt. And that's how it fails, is the starting pitching.
Is there any starting pitcher in general that you're like, wow, okay, that could work, or one that you're like, I don't know?
Well, now that McGill is in the rotation, it becomes an incredibly interesting spot there. Between him and Nick Martinez, I think you might have a full starter there. Taijuan Walker in Philly scares me. Michael Wacha in San Diego, I feel like is another. Like if you didn't have Bell at 200, getting Michael Wacha past 350 is another really nice steal, because on a first place Padres team, we saw him actually put up 130 innings last year. I like that guy too. Let's jump to the next team here at 11, and we are talking about Matt Losi. He kicked off his draft. I'm going to go the first 8 here. Mike Trout, Jacob deGrom, Julio Urias, Starling Marte, Salvador Perez, O'Neill Cruz, Brandon Lau, Ty France. So you got the 2 horses and the offense, right? It's Trout, Marte, and eventually a left fielder that we'll talk about in a minute. In the infield, it's France, Lau, O'Neill, and Salvador Perez. Anybody there stick out?
So one thing that it's one thing that immediately points out that I have to point out is I knew the whole time that I was picking Soto, like if it got to me there.
Mm-hmm.
But when Trout is picked after me, it automatically made me think to myself, well, I can't believe I just actually passed on Mike Trout, because it's weird after all this time where Trout has been consistently, he still made it. We were considering him for the second round. But
I kind of thought he would be a back end first rounder, like 14 or later. I'm not shocked he goes here at 11, but the fact that Julio Rodriguez was still on the board at this point, and we'll talk about him when we get to Jason's team, that now you start wondering, okay, somebody took Trout over Julio, I can justify that. Somebody took Soto over Julio, I can justify that. Like, where'd the pick go? Where was it supposed to happen?
Right. That's fair. So I was just thinking to myself, man, did I just make a big mistake? Because Mike Trout was there. I went with Soto. But I just knew in my gut that was the type of guy that I wanted.
And listen,
So
if Mike Trout goes off and wins the AL MVP and Soto still has a Soto season, I think you'll still feel okay at the
yeah,
end of the
I'll
year.
be okay with that. You're right. I'll be okay with that. DeGrom here at the second round. Well, I think he could have a good season if he's playing. So it's just a matter with me with DeGrom is he going to go down? Because that's kind of been the story recently. So putting a second round pick on him, I get the point that that's probably where he should go if you believe he'll be healthy. So I'm okay with that pick. I also wanted to point out that I thought Starlin Marte was a really fun pick in the fourth round. Because it's nice to have that guy. And if that's your second outfielder, you're already doing pretty darn good, in my opinion. You could actually chill on offense, but what he did was he
hit
picked
the
up.
gas.
Yeah, he really
he just hit the gas. Like, oh, okay, Starling Marte, boom, Sal Perez, like in the middle of that mini catcher run we saw happen in round 5. The O'Neill Cruz pick in 6 was really fun to pair with Marte. That's a power speed combo duo.
Sure.
Brandon Lau on the bounce back, and Ty France was his guy.
Yeah.
I thought he did quite well in the first 8 rounds.
Sure, and I like Brandon Lau here. I think that's actually a pretty solid player. If those other guys produce around him, if Yandy is good and Randy is good, obviously Wander.
Right. Moving on to round 9, it was Freddie Peralta, Garrett Whitlock here in round 10, Adam Ottavino in round 11, AJ Minter, Justin Turner, Liam Hendricks. This is where I'll pause again because this was the bullpen. This was the bullpen picks. Whitlock, Ottavino, AJ Minter, and Liam Hendricks, who now they're saying might be able to come back at some point during midseason. So maybe this isn't such a terrible pick at 214.
Maybe. It's nice that he got some decent relievers that he believed in, but a lot of these guys, I feel like, Adam Ottavino, if you want to see some of the guys that went after Adam Ottavino, that one surprised me a little bit. Some of these bullpen guys, most of them I wouldn't say are closers.
It is 11th round. Like, that is your number 2 reliever. You have to believe that guy's going to close you games, or at least close some games. And we just watched David Robertson do it without Ottavino getting into the game.
I think so. Ottavino's a streamer, in my opinion, unless we know that he's going to close. But Robertson was more likely going to be the guy.
So that's definitely your reach then, is Ottavino.
Well, we'll go through it still, but
okay.
I'm just saying that was a very surprising pick to me.
All right. So in round 15, he goes to Pat Sandoval. Lourdes Gurriel is the left fielder in round 16, and then 3 more relievers in 4 picks. So he goes Simber, Bass, Seiya Suzuki in round 19, and Cionel Perez in round 20. So now we've got the full bullpen here in front of us. Let's talk about this thing.
Yeah, again, I'm wondering where. I get that he had already solidified who his offensive pieces are going to be. But again, I see so many different guys that go after these guys that I think could help him out in the starting pitching aspect mostly, but even guys that maybe could be on his bench, just in case Sally, maybe you get a backup catcher for him. O'Neill Cruz, well, he doesn't have a shortstop besides him, right?
Correct.
Okay.
You got to believe that kid's going to play.
Yeah, he's your start. Yeah, sure. But you never know. There's off days for that guy. He gets a day off here and there, and he's slumping a little bit because he's new.
We've got 12 moves to backfill that. I'll say that much.
Sure, of course.
I'm not poo-pooing this draft. What I am saying is that he did overpay I won't say overpay, but he leaned much more toward the bullpen this year than he did his first season, and I think that's because of a lesson learned. And I think we saw something kind of similar in a mirror image. These guys Mike and Jason talked about it in Costas, who went so anti-bullpen after what he did last year, that if you land somewhere in the middle between these guys, you probably have yourself a good team. All of that being said, you look at this long bullpen and he's got 3 starters. It was Eric Lauer as the next one. A 3-man rotation.
And do you like it? Do you like that this is the top 3?
I love Urias. I thought that was an incredibly good pick there. I really thought it was a good pick.
He went after Burns, and I'm like, yeah, I think this guy could be just as good as Burns to me.
Exactly. Yeah, I agree. I was looking at Urias to be like my number 2 around when I took Robbie Ray, and he flew off the board here. And something to be said about this entire draft is that there was much a feel of go get your guy, but it was also one of those feelings of like, every time it comes back to me, all of the guys are gone. At least from my position, like every time it came back on the long way, I was always like, God damn, everybody's gone.
I want to say that I think this team goes where these top 3 starters do right now, because I think the offense is nice. I obviously think, if you have Trout and Starling and Sal, you can throw him in there just because his big year wasn't that long ago. I'd still think that he should be able to get you. I would write close to 30 is fair to expect at this point from him.
Homers from Sal?
Homers?
No.
For Sal? No.
I'll be happy if he gets to 25, but I'd imagine low 20s.
Okay.
Yeah.
See, I don't know if he's going to have that DH role pretty consistently. Even still, just the fact that he will have that, he'll be DHing. But
what he will do is probably lead the position in RBIs. Like that, I think is almost a guarantee because he does play as often. I just don't know that he's going to lead the position at homers.
If he's DHing consistently and Matt's just plugging him in at catcher, he avoids the error there. It's nice to have that guy be. You're comfortable. You know that you can play him every single time. So if he's starting, I'm playing him every single day.
I should also say that his rotation's a bit deeper than I said. It's DeGrom, Urias, Freddie Peralta's the 3, Pat Sandoval's the 4, Eric Lauer's the 5. It's actually, I don't like Freddie Peralta, and I'm scared of Jacob DeGrom, but I can see how it could be really good.
Yeah, sure. And Lauer surprised us at a certain point. He went on a little bit of a run.
Yeah. He rounds out his draft here, dude, with Jake Fraley, Kevin Biggio, Joey Bart, Harold Ramirez, and Yimi Garcia. Gross.
Okay.
I don't like it.
He's got a team that has some names, but there isn't as much balance, I think, on this team as others that we've discussed. Because he can't get you a save, right? The starting pitching is a bit top heavy as opposed to throughout rotation.
Right.
And after what I'd say the top 4 is Trout, Starling, O'Neill Cruz, and Sal.
And Sal Perez.
Maybe Brandon Lau.
If he has a bounce back season.
Right. Or I guess Ty France.
If he takes a step forward.
So I'm a little worried about Matt right off the bat. But if he day-to-day manages this group, I think he can turn it into a winning team.
This can absolutely be a winning team. And if the rotation breaks right, he should be really good. What's your steal of this draft?
Well, I don't think it's going to be much of a surprise, but I actually think it's Gurriel.
Gurriel? Oh, 16th round, Lourdes Gurriel. Yeah, 246. I even said it when he came off the board. I was like, damn, Ben, that was a pretty good pick.
Yeah, it's not a guy that I was targeting at that point because I had already kind of tackled outfield, but I like him as an outfielder, and especially as his number 3 outfielder. My favorite thing about this team is his outfield.
Yeah.
You know,
The
and
outfield
then
is pretty
again,
good.
I would say that 1, 2, 3, DeGrom, Arias. If DeGrom is on the field, I like Peralta more than you like Peralta. I'll also say that. The only bummer about Peralta is, again, same issue with Burns, that I'm worried about that, the Milwaukee Brewers and scoring.
Right.
So aside from that, again, the outfield, the top 3 for me in the rotation. Not a ton of balance. I'm worried about him, but if he's day-to-day competitive, if he keeps consistently following it, he'll be fine. And again, I think that steal might be something that actually keeps him going, because Lourdes Gurriel is all of a sudden having an awesome season.
How about a reach? For me, it's everything after Freddie Peralta in the 9th round. I just feel like everything kind of comes undone there. Ottavino's early. Minter might be in line, and I guess without Raisel Iglesias first, that's the guy who's going to get you a save, at least until Iglesias comes back.
Yes.
But Justin Turner, I don't know what other third baseman are going off the board there, but if that's your starting third base, it might be his starting third baseman, depending on where he's throwing Ty France.
Yeah, exactly. But if let's just say that he is his number 1 third baseman and France is back playing first, I don't hate it, just because we've seen enough good seasons out of Justin Turner that he could be serviceable as a 13th rounder. You know, I didn't hate it. You know,
Teams and home runs and like 70 RBIs. Is that what we're thinking?
Yeah, and somebody's going to score the runs and do stuff in Boston. So
yeah,
I'm fine with that one. I'd have to go with Ottavino. I'm sorry. I don't know what his role is besides what he did last year, which was fine, you know.
Yeah.
But
I actually would go one step earlier and say Whitlock would be my biggest reach.
Well, what do you expect him to do this year?
I don't know. And I don't think the Red Sox know, because they've been putting him as a starter and a reliever. What is he?
Yeah.
Do we even know at this point? And is he good? Do we know? But is it either your first reliever or your 4th starter in the 10th round at 150? I'm out on that one.
I didn't think anyone was touching Liam Hendriks for a while anyway, but I don't mind him saying, yeah, I've heard things. He might come back. I'll just take him just in case here. But then he just goes around it. Honestly, the one after that is the one I love the most. Patrick Sandoval. That might be my steal even more so than Gurriel when I think about it. Because,
yeah, I agree. If it wasn't going to be Urias for me in the 3rd, it would be that one, Sandoval in the 15th. That one hurt me too.
Yeah, no, that's a great pick. And you expect the Angels to score runs, and he had a nice season. He wasn't giving up a home run till like almost half the season. Yeah. So loved it. And again, I'm worried about it, but I think he can do the work and then pull it off somehow.
I think this team can go great, but there is a lot of variables that can make this go absolutely sideways.
And then the scariest part, and I know you want to switch over, but I'm just saying that also the scariest part that you could see happening is that a lot of these relievers are streamer relievers, you know, so some of them will stay on the team if he really loves them, if they keep on playing consistently, and the others that are just consistently bad, that could be an Ottavino, that could be a Minter.
Or it could be Anthony Bass.
Right, or Anthony Bass. Yeah. So...
He did get 3 Toronto relievers, Simber, Bass, and Yimi Garcia. I think all 3 of them were in this game that just ended. Anyway, let's jump over to Jason Ashby. I know he's been listening this entire time and he's been waiting. And holy shit, he got Julio Rodriguez in the 1st round. And that's the surprise of the entire 1st round, was that Julio fell. And yet I can't pinpoint where it is that he should have gone.
Well said.
So
I myself am thinking the same thing, because he was never someone that I would say, oh, I need to have Julio. you know me, I'm a body of work guy. I know he's amazing. I know he's J-Rod. I actually do believe the hype. But he's going into a sophomore season, and we've
Mhm.
seen it before. We just have seen it a lot. So I'm okay with staying away from that, even though I had the opportunity, obviously.
I
But
did it as well.
Jason's
I passed on him for Betts. You passed on him for Soto. We just talked about how Matt Losi passed on him for Trout. And yet,
Christian for with Devers, right?
yeah. And as we're sitting here, maybe it's Devers. Maybe it's Devers. But again, we talked about the exploding mountain with the helicopters. Like, Jason gets what he considers a gift here at 12, and ultimately that's what matters.
Sure.
He then goes Pete Alonso, Ryan Presley, Framber Valdez, Dalton Varsho, Wander Franco in the first 6. So the offense is the center fielder, the first baseman, a catcher, and a shortstop. Anything in here catch your eye?
He was sticking to balance. I like that. I like that he believes in Pete Alonso. That makes me happy.
Yeah.
Like right off the bat, I'm thinking like, good. You know, if Jason is willing to go to the second round and get Pete, he wants him. He trusts him up there. You know, he trusts him to be the second hitter of this team.
Is he one of like 5 guys you could say are the best bet for 40 homers?
Sure.
Like, given health.
Question.
It's like him, Judge, Yordan Alvarez.
Yeah.
Then who? Guaranteed
right.
40 homers, right?
40, yeah, because I don't think you're getting that out of Jose Ramirez. I don't
No.
think you're getting it out of Devers.
Trout, maybe, if he's healthy enough.
Maybe. Ohtani, potentially.
Did he even get 40 in that MVP year?
No, he got
Then
close.
no, I don't think you're getting 40 out of Ohtani. So I think Pete Alonso is a pretty good pick here, especially pairing it with the gift and minimal risk you are taking by taking the second-year player in Julio Rodriguez. So you get a nice power speed dude and then the power guy. Presley's a great closer. During the closer run, we saw it happen in round 3. Framber Valdez is the number 1 starter, and I said it in the draft. I'll say it here now. That's the steal for this team is Framber Valdez because I wanted that dude. I had him at number 8 on my starting pitcher rankings, and he went like I think in the 20s in this draft, and I was pretty upset that he didn't fall another round to me.
I get it. I mean, he put together a good group right off the top. I'm just thinking balance right off the top. You know,
right.
He's got his star, you know, and as far as the ace of the staff and a guy that you can believe in because you saw him do it through the playoffs and he's on a great team. So when he's up there, he's a dangerous guy and, you know, he's becoming a Dominican sensation.
Yeah. I wonder, though, how well this Dalton Varsho pick is going to pan out. Obviously, for this season, he's one of the big catchers, but this is probably the most questionable of the 3 of them, in my opinion. You're gonna get plenty of steals, but I don't know that there's going to be batting average. I don't know that there's going to be a ton of walks. I think he's going to strike out a bit.
Yeah, he's thinking, you know, that Toronto lineup, there's a lot of runs in that lineup between all those guys. You figure Kirk and Guerrero will be batting next to him a lot. So I think he made a good play just based on if he believes in him. Like that's a guy that he knows is going to have a good season again. And then, okay, I can also plug him into 2 other positions on days where I feel like playing Logan Hop. If he really likes that guy and he's like, that's my backup catcher, he'll go in there and Varsho's hot, I'll play him somewhere else. I'll find a spot in the outfield for him.
Right.
Or
and
again,
it's after the Wander Franco pick. And by the way, Jason, love the Wander Franco pick. I would have made it, but I already had Corey Seager. It's after that pick that I start having questions, honestly. Andres Munoz in round 7, Carlos Rodon in round 8, Eugenio Suarez in round 9, Christian Yelich in round 10, Chris Sale in round 11. We're going to pause there for a second. In order, young guy might be the closer. Injured guy, strikeout problem, Christian Yelich, and injury problem with Chris Sale.
Yeah. I don't know. Firstly, well, what's the first thing I want to point out? I mean,
Right.
I feel like Jason loves Carlos Rodon like Frank loves Jason. I think it's just this respect and passion that he has for this guy, and he just knows that when he's back, he can be sure to play him every single time. He's not going to, bench him even if he's playing in Fenway or in Camden Yards. He's going to go 10 every single time, and he's not going to get 200 innings probably this year, but at least he knows that strikeout to walk ratio will be good, and the team is good. He's on the Yankees. He's probably wanted to play as a Yankee for his whole entire life. It's a good situation there. He got paid. So it's a risk, but, he took a couple of these. And if they pay off, it could really work out. A Chris Sale risk, if it pays off. And I'd like to think the law of averages are in his favor. He puts a couple of these high risk, high rewards together. One or two might work out.
Eventually, they should pay off, right? But when we go beyond the Chris Sale pick at 12, we then hit Miguel Vargas, unproven rookie. Austin Hayes, solid corner outfielder. Grayson Rodriguez didn't make the roster. Dylan Dodd is a 5 questionable starter in Atlanta. Clark Schmidt's now all of a sudden the 2 on the Yankees. AJ Puck possibly the closer in Miami. That's a good spot to pause right there. This particular group is an even bigger question mark than the 5 guys I just mentioned.
Well, he knows. All I'll say is that I know that Jason has a reason for why he picked each guy. He has a belief in this person. I like Hayes. I think Hayes could be a star outfielder.
Love Hayes. Love him.
So he could be awesome. Clark Schmidt, he's getting an opportunity. Why not? Grayson Rodriguez, opportunity. He's Vargas, to me, everyone was just, oh, the guy, right? Because he's definitely starting for the Dodgers. The Dodgers seem to pump out prospects like the Cardinals have for nearly 100 years.
And they continue to do so. As far as what was the kid you just mentioned? Miguel Vargas. Yeah, he's going to play probably every day as the second baseman for the Dodgers. He's batting 7th tonight. Yeah, he's batting 7th tonight.
Playing second?
He's batting 7th
He's
tonight.
Playing second?
Correct. He is playing second.
So
he will get that eligibility.
1.
Yeah. As long as he produces. That's all it is, right? But if you stack enough questions like this, some of them aren't going to succeed. Grayson Rodriguez already hasn't.
Sure.
At the end of his draft, he goes Luis Urias, Brian Abreu, Nick Gordon, Jurickson Profar. Loved that one that late. Loved that one. Joe Jimenez, Brett Beatty, Tyler Mahle I loved, Isaac Paredes I loved, and Brian Bello, not so much.
Obviously, Jurickson Profar sticks out.
Yeah.
While we were all waiting all off season to find out where he signed, and he waited till during spring training. We're like, oh, finally, everyone that we were thinking about that needed to be paid big time, this was the last one. And he's in a good situation in Colorado there. So obviously love that pick. Love the Brian Abreu pick. You know that he's going to be jumping in there a lot and being a good protector. So you have Presley, you have the other guy that was pretty smart. Nick Gordon, don't know what to expect of him. Obviously, we've seen some flashes, but I don't know, maybe Luis Urias, he was tickled by what he saw in the World Baseball Classic. So he's thinking, oh, you know what? Maybe this guy is going to wake up this year. I think the theme for this was high risk, high reward
Yes.
on a lot of these guys. And that's okay, because if at least a couple of them work out, he can work in free agency. He'll work through the waiver wire. He'll work through a trade. He's got
We
a
know he'll
closer.
go through a trade. He's the only one to max out his trades last year.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I think it's a plenty versatile team, right? He did get Dalton Varsho, and Austin Hayes has some versatility. Luis Arias, Nick Gordon, Andy Isaac Paredes. It's very versatile, which was something that he harped on last year, saying I didn't really get a team I could mix and match with. So I wanted to see him come out of the draft like that. I'm worried about the rotation after Valdez because Rodon still has his injury issue. Chris Sale is an injury risk. And then it's Grayson Rodriguez, Dylan Dodd, and Tyler Mahle.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. I guess he's hoping for the 1-2 punch here of Framber and Sale. And just if those guys are starting every single time and getting me to the 42, I'll do some smart things with the bullpen and let them be the guys. It's a lot to ask for, obviously, but he'll sprinkle in a streamer during the week, help him get more innings, another win potentially. So we'd see that happen. And then what do you think of his 4 in the cast of the offense? Say
It's
Wander.
It's Julio, Pete, Wander, and Dalton Varsho. I like 3 out of the 4 of them. The one is Dalton Varsho. But I understand the desire at that point when you saw 2 guys go off the board right in front of you in Will Smith and Salvador Perez, that you needed to get in on this too, because you probably weren't going to get this guy on the way back.
Right. The one thing I'll say is that if you'll say that it's Varsho, then I think there's a little issue with this team, because the guy that we should be saying is Yelich. Because if that guy is doing what we've in the past seen in other drafts, he should be going a lot higher.
I don't think there's going to be a 30-homer Christian Yelich again.
It doesn't have to be, though, for him to be a star.
Well, he hit 15 and stole, I think, 19 bases last year. So let's say, for the sake of argument, he goes 15-20 again.
Well, I think there's could be potential of a higher ceiling, though, with someone like Yelich, who's had greatness in the past. Not good. He's an excellent player. Excellent.
Yeah.
Was it not?
But do you believe that do you believe that a 35-homer season, like what we saw in 2018 and 2019, do you think that's?
I have to see. I have to see more of the season, obviously, to see what the new rules and the clock. Like, it's hard for me to predict something like that. But I could still say is hits.
He's never hit more than 21 other than the 18 and 19 juice balls years.
Well, there are other stats besides home runs where he can be something.
He scored 100 runs, 99 runs last year, but 3 seasons with 100 runs, 17, 18, and 19. Drove in 95 runs or more 3 times, 16, 18, and 19.
Any good batting averages there? Well?
Yeah, 326 and 329 in 18 and 19.
And then in 21, it was
250, 252. Not great.
Yeah. That, to me, isn't that long ago where there was an amazing player. So
right. But do you expect a 30-homer Christian Yelich ever again?
I don't worry that much about the home run total, though. I'll say, sure, it could be possible, but he could hit 23 and still have an awesome season.
Sure.
And if that's your number 2 outfielder and the 4th guy in your cast, I mean, you got him for really great value.
150 is nice.
Yeah, I love this outfield of Yelich, Julio, and Austin Hayes. I like, even if we said, okay, if Yelich isn't it, if Profar could take another step up, maybe he's the 4th guy in the cast, and he's there in Colorado, that's valuable. Maybe that becomes even the 3rd outfielder there, and Austin Hayes takes a step back. there's things to play with. Eugenio Suarez did have over 40 home runs over 4 years ago. Again, it's Safeco Field. I'm not expecting that. I'm also not expecting that type of player anymore with that type of power. I'm worried about those
He had 30
strikeouts.
last year.
Sure.
Yeah. I think 25 to
There's a
30 is a
difference between
safe
30
option here. Yeah.
Huh? 30?
I think
Yeah.
I think 25 to 30 is perfectly safe for Eugenio Suarez. But yeah, you're right. He's going to strike out 175 times minimum. If there's a reach, I think to me, it's Andres Munoz without backing him up. But if again, this is the draft of go get your guys. So if you believe that Munoz is going to close games for Seattle, then you went and got him. If it's not that guy, I don't know. Is it Miguel Vargas? He said go get his guys. He got another one of his guys. Suarez might be the answer for me because I don't know that 175 minimum strikeout third baseman under like in the 9th round when we did see third baseman go later than that. Justin Turner went 5 or 6 rounds later and we talked about him.
Yeah, sure.
Is there a reach for you?
Me? Yeah. Man, I guess I kind of agree with the Varsho thing just because unless you truly believe this guy's amazing, we saw a lot of great catchers continue to fall if you were going to get like the best. But maybe he does believe he is one of the best catchers. So I guess that one would be for me. And then, dare I say, if Pete doesn't put up what we hope he can, then he's probably not a second rounder. But I love the homer pick for Pete Alonso.
I love it.
I'm not going to, I guess I can't even call that a reach. Yeah, I'll stick with my own. Probably Varsho.
Okay. And as far as a steal, I think we talked about them.
Yeah.
We love Profar. I personally love Paredes and Molly. And Austin Hayes. I think we liked Austin Hayes at 204.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just somebody in the 13th round. It's hard to call him a steal, but it's a nice guy to add and be his either third or fourth outfielder, depending on what Profar does.
Right. All right, let's move on to the first rookie of the draft, Benjamin. Henry Collins, ace in the coal. 13th overall in the draft, started off with Kyle Tucker, then Garrett Cole, Devin Williams, Luis Robert, George Springer, Andres Jimenez, and Willy Adames. That's the first 7. It's most of the offense, the ace, and the reliever. Who sticks out?
Just the fact that he was like, this is my outfield, and they're going to be monsters. That's one thing I noticed. And then obviously I got the ace that I believe in. He's my guy. He's a Yankee, and he can run with the ace and 3 strong outfielders that are immediately 3 big stars of his entire lineup.
Yeah. I love the Willy Adames, Andres Jimenez middle infield. We had mentioned that, I think, during the draft. Like, that's a really strong middle infield of stolen bases and a lot of power. They balance each other very nicely. The outfield, you just said it, is killer. The only concern I have is that it locks up the utility spot rather than having all 3 outfield spots covered. So he did need to go find a left fielder. We'll talk about him in a minute. Cole and Williams were perfect for the foundation.
Yes.
And the next few picks are where he starts expanding there. In the 8th round, Joan Duran, Charlie Morton, CJ Crone, Lance Lynn, Matt Chapman, Jesus Luzardo, Ross Stripling, and Zach Eflin in the 15th round. Here's your staff, man. It goes Cole, Morton, Lynn, Luzardo, Stripling, Eflin. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
I like it a lot. Like,
I
do not like Charlie Morton, but I love Jesus Luzardo.
Yes. Especially where he got him.
I'm slightly like room temperature cool on Lance Lynn, and I'm lukewarm to Ross Stripling. So they balance each other out too. But I really like this staff.
Yeah, I'm totally okay with the staff as far as the way he put it together. Different types of players, guys on winning teams for the most part. Mm-hmm. So absolutely, I think that was a great target from him. I thought Duran, of course, behind Devin Williams as his like second bullpen guy is perfectly acceptable. And yeah, just
he got his corners
I like
here
that
as well in CJ
Yeah.
Cron and Matt Chapman.
perfect because you got the one guy who's on a very good team in Toronto and poised for a comeback season, I would think. And then he's got a Colorado hitter, the first
Yeah.
baseman.
A
So
safe Colorado hitter that, like, you know what you're going to get out of this guy.
I think so at this point, even though we haven't seen it a ton, now we've watched it for long enough that you're like, okay, this is who he is.
Right. The first left field eligible guy is Will Myers in round 16. Then John Gray, Danny Jansen, Carlos Estevez, Carlos Carrasco, Brock Burke, and Bryson Stott. So Will Myers becomes the left fielder and the backup first baseman behind CJ Cron. Personally, I loved it. I thought it was a great pick, Henry. It was an incredibly smart pick for how the makeup of the team needed to fit together. You needed a starting left fielder. And what if you want to bench CJ Cron when he's on the road? Congratulations. You've got Will Myers, who has the second best home ballpark. That's a brilliant move.
Yeah. The fact that he joins the Reds and he's in the Great American Small Park is just such a benefit. It could only be a better situation than when he played at Petco. Yeah. So now you have him as your left fielder every day, and you see what you got with him. You're not getting killed in that position if he doesn't succeed, because there are probably going to be other options out there in free agency anyway, and at least you still brought enough sticks from the draft. No matter what, I think that he's loaded offensively, and he took enough starting pitchers that, Carlos Carrasco is on that team. He could be a solid 3 or 4, or even a solid enough 5 on his fantasy team.
If there's a nitpick on the choices in this particular draft, I have to get all the way to rounds 18 and 19 for me to go. Don't know that Danny Jansen needed to be selected in the 18th round. I feel like that could have been much later. I just feel like if you were going to wait for Danny Jansen in the 18th round, what the hell's stopping you from getting whoever's left in the 24th?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. Again, it is a Toronto player, so it is a guy on a good team. But you're right. There were still a good amount of catchers at that point that could have been grabbed, but he felt like he needed a catcher there, and I guess that's where he went with. But the one behind it, Carlos Estevez, that's a good idea.
It's a good idea, but he's been awful, and it's your RP3.
Okay. But
you're kind of counting on that.
He has been awful, but that doesn't mean he's not going to get an opportunity.
Sure.
Like, there's a reason why he's been given the opportunity to fail, So I think there's still a chance with Estevez. But, the one that followed, I said Carrasco. Then, then I'm getting a little confused. But Bryson Stott, that's his backup guy. I like that because you know that he's getting the everyday opportunity. He's got to step up now, especially that Derek Hall is playing first, right? So it's a big spot for Bryson Stott. So if Henry is starting him, he starts him in the right situation. Obviously, maybe Jimenez has the day off for whatever reason. The team, Cleveland, has the day off. He gets an opportunity. It's not a bad guy to have. And I love Lance Lynn, by the way, going back, because I didn't get a chance to say. I love Lance Lynn. And I would call him as number 2, actually, because I actually agree with you about Charlie Morton. But in general, I'm totally Stripling as another guy in this rotation. Yeah. There's balance, man. Like, he got enough guys. With
Stripling and Luzardo back-to-back is a beautiful pairing at the back end of the rotation. Loved it. He finishes out this draft with Tim Meza in round 23. Andrew Heaney goes all the way to round 24 somehow. Like, he was good when he was healthy, and he's not unhealthy now.
Right. And yet, he was good most recently, it's been success. Like, there was a lot of failure until the success, but the success has been very recent.
Right.
So we can at least keep our eye on that.
Right.
What do you?
Let me finish this out. Josh Donaldson at 397 in round 25, and Eric Haas, a backup catcher in round 26. I go back to, why did you fuck with Danny Jansen in round 18?
Well, I guess he was thinking, one could not work out, so let me go to the other guy just in case.
And this has always been my strategy. If I don't give a fuck about catcher, it'll be a last 3-round thing, and I'll figure out what I'm going to get. All of that is to say, like, Eric Haas probably is going to be just fine as a catcher.
It's very possible. One of those guys will be his guy, but at the same time, that a catcher doesn't play every day. So maybe he just wants another guy just to cover it for now, even though there is a chance you could just be doing that in free agency.
Yeah.
You want to use one of your 12 ads on a catcher that day, you can, but
or you can just not play with a catcher.
Or you can play without a catcher and play with 8. You can take that risk.
Yep.
When
we look over this thing as a whole, who do you think is a great steal, and who do you think is a great? It was a big reach.
Well, by the way, also before I even tell you that, I'll say that the Donaldson pick I actually like a lot. As a personal thing, I'm a fan of that guy, but I wouldn't call that the steal.
No, but pairing him and Matt Chapman is a nice duo.
Yeah. Wow. There are quite a few of them, man. And I'm probably not going to say Will Myers. I'll go even higher up in the draft. And it's either Crone or Lynn. It's 10th and 11th. Like those two guys, because Crone could obviously be a 30-plus homer, over 100 RBIs. If you're getting that late, that could be amazing. And
George
then
Springer, even after 75, is a good deal.
That's an awesome 5th rounder, George Springer. Yeah, that might be a steal as well, for sure.
Yeah. Henry, you did good. You did damn good, I'll say.
Did good. The reach, I think we're both in agreement here. I guess it's Charlie Morton, right? Are you going to say Danny Jansen?
Yeah. Well, listen, if you believe that Charlie Morton's really going to go out there at age 39 or whatever and strike out 200 guys for the Braves, then you got yourself a steal at 140. I just don't think it's going to happen.
And you're happy with the cast? George Springer, Kyle Tucker, I guess Luis Robert, and either Jimenez or Crone.
And one of the middle infield guys? Yeah, I am. I think the middle infield and the 3 outfielders.
Yeah, Adames had 30 home runs.
5, right? Yeah. So call it a 5. It's a middle infield and 3 outfielders.
Yeah, and Crone, possibly.
And I guess Crone would be the next guy in.
Yeah, no, it's a solid. If we're saying all these things, this guy, it's a good offense. It's a solid enough rotation, deep bullpen. I'm very pleased. Very impressive for a guy that's never drafted with us before. I think he did an incredible job.
Well, we go from one guy who has never drafted with us before to a guy who has, but it was literally a lifetime ago. Adam Lowenstein, number 14 overall, goes Manny Machado, Max Scherzer, Matt Olson, then decided not to take a guy whose name started with M in Yu Darvish, Raisel Iglesias. So let's talk about the first 5 here. We get 2 starters, a reliever, and the corners. It is a very old school strategy that I think still holds water today.
Yeah.
No outfield, no speed. Well, minimal speed from Machado. Let's say 12 steals from him, right? I don't think he's going near 20, but 10 to 15 might be fair. But no speed at the top of this team.
No, that's okay. If he's got a bunch of boppers, that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
And the 2 starters,
Scherzer and Darvish, come on now. You can't get better than that one.
Yeah.
Raisel Iglesias is the injured closer, though, in the 5th round.
Yeah. Yeah. I think he was thinking, I'm seeing the closers go. I want at least one of them. He is going to come back, and he's been paid to close. So I think that's probably going to happen. Could be a chip later, or we've already talked about some teams that are like, there's one closer. Maybe he picks up a guy, all of a sudden he has 2. So he could still possibly compete in that stat if Russell comes back and he's awesome in that role. If Iglesias is just awesome, then you got something. Then you possibly could win that stat against some of these other teams that really didn't do that. Like Matt Mosey, he got a lot of relievers and he had a much better draft, but somehow he just still didn't have a closer. At least there's a hint of that possibility. Obviously, that might have been one that he reached for because I don't think anyone was thinking of going for it.
Maybe not in round 5, but in the coming rounds, I probably would have. That being said, here comes the offense. In round 6, Dansby Swanson. 7 is Stephen Kwan, then Gleyber Torres, Ian Happ, Thairo Estrada, Whit Merrifield. Lots of versatility here with Kwan, Thairo Estrada, and Whit Merrifield. How do you feel about the back end of that, however? And 10 and 11 going Thairo Estrada and Whit Merrifield.
Thairo Estrada surprised the heck out of me, but I'm going to guess that he was looking at specific kinds of stats and thought that, he stole a base today. But I don't really know this guy, but there was a reason he went for him. I like the Whit Merrifield just because I've always been a fan of watching him play. And if he could have a comeback year, law of averages is in his favor to do something similar to what he was. Basically a fantasy darling, put up all kinds of numbers, and having that versatility, I've always liked Whit Merrifield, but never had him on my team. So I thought that was a good pick. Ian Happ is supposed to be one of the stars on the Chicago Cubs. And obviously, Dansby is paid a lot to be a star of that team as well. So I think the fact that he got those 2 Cubs guys, that was a smart idea. Whether he was thinking of it or not, I'm not sure. But I know the Gleyber pick for him was, I hate the Yankees, but if he does well on my team, then at least I'll be happy about that. So I think that's why he picked Torres.
Yeah, I think Gleyber fits well, but he doesn't need to be the second baseman forever because Estrada and Merrifield already fill that role if you want to go that route. In round 12, he starts the pitching again. So he's already got Scherzer and Darvish. We go Joe Ryan, Drew Rasmussen, Keibert Ruiz behind the plate, Michael Conforto to round out the outfield, and then James Karinchak, David Peterson, Eric Swanson, Tyler Rogers in round 19. So this is most of the rotation in the bullpen here in this pair.
And then Conforto sprinkled in. And
Conforto and Ruiz were the batters, yeah.
Like it. I love that his number 3 starter was arguably the best starter on the Minnesota Twins last year. That guy goes behind the nice 1-2 punch. So that I liked a lot. And I thought Ruiz, where he got him, he had a nice year last year. So if that's the other guy, there was maybe some kind of theme of picking guys on teams that he doesn't like the Nationals. You see that Matt Olson was his first baseman and 3rd rounder. So I thought that it was smart that he picked up one of the San Francisco pitchers. And I'm happy with Peterson. Obviously he won that job. So I think this was really, really well rounded as far as he went through the draft, filling a need.
Agreed. It gets a little interesting here on the back end. It's Christian Vasquez as the backup catcher in round 20. JP Sears, a starter that was in the Montas trade from the Yankees. He's now on Oakland. Adam Frazier was the guy he got timed out on and has already dropped him. Yusei Kikuchi, great late pick because he's been fire this spring. Caleb Thielbar, Mark Canha, and Eduardo Escobar, the 2 homer picks to round out the draft. And you know what? I love it. I love Eduardo Escobar and Mark Canha in the back end of this draft.
Yeah, I think that's some of my favorite picks because these are starters. They're going to play every day. They should be on a good scoring offense. Should be on the Mets. And you plug them in every day. Canha's a great at-bat. Canha fights in every single at-bat. He never gives it up. He's always fouling it off. He's a good guy to have, and he's got him in 2 positions, potentially. big thing with this that I think that Adam was going for was versatility with the offense, and then top heavy with the pitching, and cover my ass in certain things in case other guys, Conforto, maybe he's a starter, but Tyro Estrada could get that spot. Christian Vasquez could be the catcher if Ruiz was just a 1 year thing, and maybe he's another sophomore slump kind of guy. So he was covering every single spot. He missed a little bit on the closer, like the top tier closers. But again, I think he can work with that. And he might not need to win that stat. He could still put up 13 sevens with this offense and his pitching staff.
Mm-hmm. The credit I will give, and the best pick here, what am I looking for? What's the word here? The steal of the draft. I just had to go search where somebody went, because there was a thought in our heads for a long time that if I'm at a wheel and I get Jeffrey Springs and Drew Rasmussen together, that would be a pretty nice pairing, right? What if I told you that he got Drew Rasmussen after pick 200? Jeffrey Springs went at 135. That's a hell of a pick.
Yeah. And that's just part of his rotation now.
Yes.
Yeah. Could be very, very,
it's like
very
just his 4.
Yeah.
Solid.
And that's a good number 4. And if you, like you said, Kikuchi, if he can continue from spring and be, if that's his number 5, he can be an actual number 5 as it is in the major leagues. And that'll be fine. That'll help him get to the 42 when maybe you're only getting 1 start out of Scherzer and Darvish that week. So you need somebody else. And
who's your
what
steal,
do you think? The steal. Well, obviously Canna has gone earlier in other drafts. Like he's never gone this low before. So that's one I think of immediately.
I think both he and Escobar are fair to say here. I really believe that.
So.
Like, those are starting players on a good team that are just on his bench, because Manny Machado is going to start third base every day for this team.
I'd say the other guy is Joe Ryan. Like that's his number 3, and he got him in the 12th, and he's potentially the ace on the Twins.
So. I agree. Anybody he reached for other than Iglesias? I don't necessarily know if JP Sears is a thing. I don't even know if he's still rostered.
Maybe. Conforto, potentially, you are banking on a lot, but I don't know. See, the thing is, like, some might say that you reached for Whit Merrifield, but I mean, I think that's a good spot for Merrifield. So I guess it really depends on your outlook and what you
I don't think it's all that bad for Merrifield either.
Yeah. A lot of people cringed at the Dansby Swanson pick. I didn't mind it at all.
I didn't necessarily. 83, he went off the board pretty late compared to other shortstops. Yeah.
They did good. And I think Karinchak was a good guy in his bullpen as well, right behind Klosser. That's good. I thought he did great. Just like Henry. I don't have
new guys nailed it this year. Yeah. Feeling it from the new guys this year.
All right. So let me, before we switch over, his cast of his offense. How do you feel?
Machado, Olsen, Swanson, and pick one of Quan, Glaber, Ian Happ, Tyro Estrada, or Whit Merrifield. Yeah. So, I mean, pick one of those guys. I like it. I don't love it because the 3 isn't as good as I would want it to be. The 2 strikes out too much, and the 4 is pick one of those guys.
Pick one of those guys,
right?
And, they're all kind of there.
Yeah, it's good, not great. I like it, don't love it. There are parts of it that are really sexy, and then the rest are just okay.
And all those guys that we're talking about that could be the forecasters, do you have a gut instinct on any of them that you're like, I could see that guy having a great year?
I don't think it's Dansby, because I think we just saw the best of him in 25 homers, 18 steals, and like a 280 batting average. I just don't think that's going to happen this year. Stephen Kwan has the bat to ball ability to be exactly what he was last year, but what that is like single digit home runs and some steals and a good batting average. But like, You're not getting any power. You're not getting much of anything. Gleyber Torres, I don't even know that he's going to end up starting the entire season. I don't know that he's on that team all year. I could say the same thing about Ian Happ. I don't
Give me one.
like.
Is there a gut?
I don't
You
like any of them. I don't like.
Okay.
Ian Happ is probably the one I like the most.
Okay, that's it then.
So
Happ
him.
is the one that you believe in most to maybe have an explosion.
Yeah, especially on a walk year.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. Over to Kirby's Dreamland with Mike Haber. And we know Mike Haber is often a guy who will draft bat after bat after bat and then go for the relief pitching much later. Nothing changed here. Vlad Guerrero at 15 and then Justin Verlander on the way back at 18. Yikes.
Yeah.
Marcus Semien, Cedric Mullins, Carlos Correa, Chris Bryant. And that's where I'll pause it here. So that is the offense. Vlad, Semien, Mullins, Correa, Bryant. That's the 5. How do we feel?
Love it. So devastating. And the fact that the last guy that you're saying is Bryant is even scarier. So his 5th best hitter is this Colorado former MVP from Chicago and still pretty young and built into his body at this point that he could have an insane year. Yeah, Correa, are you kidding? He hates Mullins, but now he gets to love Mullins because of, obviously the history with him and Costas. And now he gets to enjoy what that guy could potentially do with that Baltimore offense. So awesome job. You'd hope that Semien is what he's supposed to be in Texas. And
it's a great first 6 rounds. It's a tremendous first 6 rounds. Then we get into the pitching. Joe Musgrove, IL. So now his top 2 guys are already nixed. George Kirby, Pete Fairbanks, Bryce Harper, Anthony Rendon, Jose Miranda. And that's where I'll pause it there. So his top 2 starters and Bryce Harper in the 10th round were already at the IL maximum with 2. George Kirby now becomes the number 1 for the foreseeable future. Pete Fairbanks is the first reliever on the team in round 9. Rendon is a bounce back candidate, and Jose Miranda is kind of the backup to him with first base eligibility. So how do you feel about that group so far?
Yeah, I guess if he's got a gut instinct about Rendon and he's covering it immediately with Miranda and he sees that as the third base core, I don't mind that so much. Bryce Harper in the 10th is just perfect. I mean, what a great pick. No one's thinking about doing it there. I mean, 10th round for what you could potentially be getting from Bryce Harper. That's an amazing round pick. 10th, wow, for Bryce Harper.
It just backfires when you lose Verlander on opening day, and you're Musgrove.
Of course. I mean, I couldn't foresee Verlander happening literally just one, but it stinks right now. And I guess, if the point I think of what you're trying to say is you leave yourself potentially naked if you're immediately knowing these are my IL guys. If something happens to a star potentially, then you're kind of in trouble. But if there's one manager I know that can weather the storm and play with 25 for a little bit, I think he can do it. And I think he's okay. I think he's okay with that task, because it's a challenge for him. And he's done a great job with this offense. I like the pitching staff as he's building it here. I don't love it. Even if Verlander was the number 1. Like that, obviously, Musgrove, you're waiting on. And then George Kirby. I mean, is he as good as Logan Gilbert, or is he the other guy that we're going to forget about?
Or is he better than Logan Gilbert? Because that's the conversation that's happening. This kid might be better.
He might be, or he might not be. I'm just not sure. So as the 8th rounder, I don't know. I certainly wasn't going to go for that guy.
We go to the 13th round, and here comes the bullpen. Kendall Graveman, Dylan Floro, Jimmy Herget, Ronaldo Lopez, and then some backups here. We get Seth Brown to cover for Harper until he's back. We get Reed Detmers as the fourth starter and Travis d'Arnaud as the catcher. And that's where I'll pause. So what do you think of the bullpen pieces? Graveman, Floro, Jimmy Herget, and Reynaldo Lopez.
Awesome. Just awesome across the board. Perfect time to take all of those guys, taking chances on them. And there's a good chance that at least one pay off. And that would be fine at this point. So he made that decision that he was going to wait as long as he could to go for the bullpen. And I think he made it pay off here. I think he picked some really good potential guys. If it doesn't work out, then he's got to do some work during the season, but we've seen him build the bullpen during the season. So I'm sure he'll be okay. And I'm fine with these particular pieces and when he picked them.
Seth Brown was a nice pick in this 17th round, though I faded so far on this guy in the preseason because it does not look like Oakland is going to do anything to be competitive. So I just can't get on board with that. d'Arnaud, probably a pretty good catcher pick here because he's going to DH often enough. So that's pretty solid. Reed Detmers, I did love that pick. I hope that he's everything that the Angels need him to be, because they really need one of these lefties to stand up there and be a horse with Ohtani.
Yes.
Hope for the best with that guy. In the 20th round, he got Jack Flaherty. Let's not forget the run that this guy went on in 2019, but that was already 4 years ago now, and we're still chasing that because we've never seen it. The other side of that coin, it's his walk year. He goes then Oscar Colas, the young right fielder on the White Sox in round 21. Luis Rengifo, Estuary Ruiz, Roansy Contreras, Adbert Alzolay, and Johnny Cueto to end it out.
Did a great job, honestly. I think these were mostly gut guys, but all guys with high ceilings. I think every pick was very, very focused and patient. When I look at round 19, right? Like that's when he went with his catcher. Like he went that long and he got a guy that could potentially be awesome. I mean, we have our own feelings about Travis d'Arnaud from our past, but he has turned into the prospect that he was highly touted to be. So waiting that long and then following it with Jack Flaherty, who I think has an incredible possibility of being an awesome pitcher and potentially the ace of that St. Louis Cardinals staff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, we've seen him be it before. We may see him do it again. I certainly hope he stays healthy because when he is electric. But it's been a moment before we've seen him actually healthy. So
that's true.
So what's the steal of the draft for you here for Mr. Haber?
Well, I hate to give it away, but I'd have to say it's Herget. I think the potential of him closing games on that team could really, really help him out. And maybe he's the number one closer on his team when all is said and done. Could be Estevez, could be him. Remains to be seen. We might find out in the next couple of days. But that would have to be my steal in front of everybody. And if it's not him, then it's probably Flaherty. I mean, Jack Flaherty as a potential ace of the Cardinals 20th round, that could be incredible. We could all remember that for a long time if he becomes the guy that he was in 2019.
Yeah, it's either him or Reed Detmers for me. I like both of those options, and I think one of them is going to put up a decent season where it doesn't even have to be the ace of the staff type season. But right now, if somebody starts rattling off 4 or 5 really good starts in a row before Musgrove and Verlander come back, holy shit, we're dealing with a good Mike Haber team who's all of a sudden getting a really good pitcher coming back.
Yes.
What about a reach? Do you feel a reach anywhere?
Yeah, I think I do. I said before George Kirby, but that's because I don't believe in this guy the way maybe you guys do. So it wasn't a guy that I would target. The other two that I'm a little concerned about is the Anthony Rendon, Jose Miranda, and it's all personal. it's nothing that unless you owned them both last year, which I did. I traded for one, as we know. He wasn't that good until he was injured for the entire year in Rendon. And I was expecting a lot from him. I traded Devers for him, So that one really burned me. And the guy that I followed up with to be the guy instead, eventually, besides Donaldson, was Miranda. And I kept Miranda for a while. I kept Miranda for almost five matchups at least, maybe 6. But he was only good once I dropped him. And I think it was the day after I dropped him when the streak began. So again, personally, I haven't experienced the quality of those two guys. So because I didn't see it, it's hard for me to believe in it, but I can certainly understand why he would want to do it. And then the other guy, like you said, Seth Brown, I guess somebody has to do the production in Oakland, but they're just going to be so bad. And maybe he's not a good player and he's not the guy that we're thinking. Who's going to be the star of Oakland? It might not be him.
It might not be him. It might not be anybody. This team is going to be awful. He also took Estuary Ruiz. So he took 2 Oakland days. 2. He took the fast guy and maybe the power guy.
Mm-hmm.
For me, I don't even count those dudes as a reach. Why on earth are you drafting Roansy Contreras and Adbert Alzolay?
Well, he needs a rotation at this point because it's Kirby, Musgrove. Now, Verlander he didn't see coming.
Right.
But
and Musgrove, we're only expecting 1 turn through the rotation. He's going to probably be here.
Right.
Like,
so basically,
he'll still pitch in this match.
I count him as being in the rotation. But it's Verlander, Musgrove, Kirby. Where's it going?
Detmers, Flaherty.
Oh, yeah, duh. Yeah, no, that's a great 5.
So you have 5. Do you need the guy on Pittsburgh or the failed Cubs prospect in their bullpen? I talked about Alzolay before. He's not a thing. Let's stop trying to make him a thing. It's just not going to happen. And Contreras, okay, I said the exact same thing last year to Costas. Why did you bother drafting JT Brubaker? Because he's the opening day starter on Pittsburgh? You could get him anyway.
Yeah. Absolutely. You can just pick that guy up on the day potentially. But they don't necessarily know that.
Well, and that being said, I'm nitpicking 2 of his final 3 draft picks. That's where I have to go in order to nitpick Mike Haber's draft.
So. Yeah. For sure. No, it's tough. All right. So what do you think of the cast here on the offense? We got
it's sick, and if it's healthy, it's a playoff team. That's it. If Vlad plays 150 games, and Semion's going to play 160, if Cedric Mullins plays 150 and Carlos Correa plays 150, this team's going to the playoffs.
Yeah, that's fair.
And I even would say that if Verlander missed the season with this thing, he'd still be able to make this.
Yeah, I think he can make it just on who he is. I mean, Mike Haber will piece together whatever holes there are in this team. He'll do it quickly. He'll do it during the matchup. He'll play to the score. Obviously, this is a bona fide playoff team every single season. He's missed the playoffs 3 years ever since 2008, and we're talking about 2020 being one of them. So you can throw that one out right away, and you know that this guy knows how to compete daily better than any guy, on when he's hot, especially, and he knows the pick to click. He's okay. This guy's going to hit this day. Okay, this guy's going to have 7 strong innings this day, and he'll just plug them, and then, I'm weak in the bullpen because I picked late for those guys. I'll find a way to trade for a closer, or I'll add them through free agency. So he could have picked no one, and he could turn it into a playoff team, but instead he has one of the most dangerous offenses we've seen since we've been talking about this, man.
And it's always like this. We come out of the drafts going, God damn, Mike Haber's got another killer offense. One year he got Chris Bryant and JD Martinez on bounce back years. This year it's led by Vlad. So great. We're going to watch this all season. I can't believe I have to hate Vlad. I can't hate Vlad.
You don't have to hate him. You can root for him.
I don't want to root for him.
What's taking you away? Because you're worried about Mike Haber?
I am. I'm always worried about Mike Haver. He's good. Speaking of
Yes.
good, how about the best draft that Frank Bucco has had, hands down, bar none, full stop? Do you agree?
Um, yeah, sure. I think he did a great job.
I
I think
agree.
he handled being 16th very well, and that's a very hard spot because, as Mike and Jason were talking about it on their pod, that having that bookend, it's a blessing and a curse. It's
Mhm.
you get that one chance, and then you just see so many guys that you desire that you're not going to get, and they're just dropping out of the queue so quickly, and you
Right.
have to make the adjustment. And I think Frank, he didn't seem to be struggling in there from what I remember too much. He basically knew where he was going. Maybe there were a couple that there was a little bit of thinking and some extra thinking done, but he
But
he
by and
picked
large,
the
he knew
holes
what
that
he had a plan.
yeah,
He came
he filled
in,
the holes
he
quick.
executed, and it's a thing of beauty. I'm gonna run it by pairs. I'm gonna run the first two pairs because they are hitter, pitcher, hitter, pitcher. Paul Goldschmidt, Spencer Strider, Francisco Lindor, Dylan Cease. Goldschmidt and Lindor, love them. Strider and Cease, I'd like to get your thoughts.
Yeah, well, Strider, he just put up such great numbers when he was playing, and it was so consistent through the end of the season that I can understand. He watched him all the time, and he loves his stuff. And he said, "This is the pitcher that I want, and if I don't grab him now, I won't see him again. So if I'm going to get a starting pitcher, that's my favorite one." And I appreciate that. And it was, I guess, the same thing as Dylan Cease. He was just saying,
Mhm.
and honestly, I think it was a good position for him to say, I know the guys that I want, and I know the time that they will be gone.
Yeah.
So here's the time to go and get them.
And
It's
it's an easy spot to
possible.
draft from, especially early when you have the mindset of, okay, best hitter available and this guy. And
Yes.
then best hitter available and
Right.
this guy.
Or-
Nailed
yeah.
it. Absolutely nailed it. I don't know that I believe in the pitchers, but that's irrelevant. Like the strategy makes sense.
Yes, for sure, for sure. It comes down to if those guys execute, obviously.
Right.
He's got the gut instinct on those particular guys.
Here's the rest of the offense because the next 3 cycles he went hitter, hitter. Kyle Schwarber and Gunnar Henderson, Brian Reynolds and Anthony Santander, William Contreras and Brendan Donovan. 6 straight hitters. He fills all of the outfield, gets the superest of utility guys to cover everything, gets his catcher, and gets a third baseman because that was the big one. He needed to find that third baseman, and he found the last one, the parachute, in Gunnar Henderson.
Well, Donovan and Gunnar, they're such young players that I can't make an
So is
inkling of an
Contreras,
idea.
for that matter.
Yeah, right. I mean, you're thinking more that, okay, it's the brother of Wilson. So, but again, I talked about it earlier, that Milwaukee offense, it just scares me on their potential run production. And that happened way before opening day happened, and they just got shut out. But that's a completely different story. It's something that's been concerning me. When they won the division a couple of years ago, I was like, why? How do they even? Because obviously Burns and Woodruff were just so awesome. They were just horses for the entire season, but it really didn't weigh heavily on their offense. I mean, Avisail Garcia was a big part of their offense, and he didn't even have that great of a year. So again, I'm a little concerned. Obviously, if Yelich can turn it around, that changes a lot. But Santander, I'm a fan of a 30 home run outfielder in Baltimore. Gunnar Henderson, okay, that's kind of a pairing that he wants to do. If one is doing well, the other one is doing well. I don't know what to believe in Gunnar Henderson. So in the 6th round, I probably wasn't going for this guy in the 20th round or even later. But that's just my feeling about the youth. I don't have a problem. Like, there's super young teams in our league. They talked about Bobby's team. Bobby, more than any of these teams, went for the youth of baseball. And I think it's really fascinating. He's just like, this is a star prospect. This is a star prospect. This is a star prospect. Wasn't too concerned with body of work. besides Jose Ramirez for most of it. So I respected it, but it's not me. It's not something that I could do. And I think Frank mixed in a lot of that with some guy, unless if you count Anthony Santander as a veteran, I don't know if I count him as a veteran yet. I still think he's a pretty young player. But Schwarber, that's the guy that's kind of the older player. That's the next part of his offense, right? Like that's his guy after.
It's the number
the two
3
stars.
after the top 2. Right.
Yeah. And do we love it? Do we think that he can produce that again, especially with Bryce out and Hoskins out? I guess somebody's got to do it, but I don't know if he's going to see as many pitches to hit.
He does have Trey Turner hit in front of him. I don't think it's a bad pick there in the 5th round, especially if you can guarantee me 30 homers from that guy, 35 homers.
Absolutely.
Does he fall into that group of guys that you can guarantee me 40 from? No. But is he probably the next tier of safe bets to go for 40 after Judge, Alonso, and Yordan Alvarez? I think he would be in the conversation. Yeah, he'd be in the conversation. So 35 might be a good safe bet. That'll work. That'll work in the 5th round. My concern is that he's going to strike out a ton. And I don't know how well the rest of these guys strike out. I don't like Santander's strikeout rate. I don't know about William Contreras. I'm not sure about Reynolds. So I'm not really at liberty to say. But after Brendan Donovan goes off in round 10, here comes all of the staff. All of it. Pablo Lopez in 11, Craig Kimbrell, Jordan Montgomery, Cal Quantrill, Brandon Rowdy Tellez signing in round 15, Jose Urquidy, Ryan Tepera, Domingo Acevedo, Diego Castillo, Jose Alvarado, Michael Kopech, Aaron Bummer, Jared Schuster, Mike Clevenger, Jalen Beeks, and Ryan Pepio. He doesn't take a hitter after Rowdy Tellez in round 15. He takes one after round 10. Thoughts?
Yeah. So again, we said that this was a pretty sound draft, but it's also playing to the way Frank kind of started to formulate his strategy. He didn't like leaving stats on the bench. He was going to go with a full staff, big bullpen, and play with 9, and maybe find that pick to click in free agency for that day on the short Monday, Thursdays. If his particular guy isn't starting, he'll play with 9, maybe 1 on the bench, most probably 2. And for the most part, just if a guy is slumping, he'll get dropped, he'll get traded. That's kind of the way Frank has been doing it. I don't see that much of a difference in there. You know, if a guy is cold, I don't see Frank sticking with it as much as he did with a Dansby Swanson. I should say that.
Yeah, we know that the patience is not a virtue for Frank, but this team build creates the scenario where I don't think he'll think of it as patience. He'll just go, these are my guys.
For sure. And he'll have a gut instinct about a guy, and he'll say, okay, I was wrong. I knew I was wrong, and he'll accept it, and he'll move on, and he'll go to the next guy. And he'll still be a guy that's looking at the score and playing to the score and making his picks based on that in free agency. He's going to use all 12 on most weeks. We already know that. He's going to be very aggressive as much as he can to get a stat here and there when he can on a Thursday, or, oh, okay, I'm close in innings, go for that starter. But he did do a good job here building a staff that at least a couple of these guys, you can say, all right, I know it's a good idea to play him. You're not going to bench Pablo Lopez almost at any point. No. I don't think you should.
No, Pablo is a great ad in the 11th round. I even told Frank at that point, I was like, good job. It's 175. I probably wasn't touching him. I don't like the Minnesota. I just want to see it. Because if he's actually going to be using a third pitch and he becomes a real pitcher, I'm all on board. But last season, if you go look at his pitch usage, he was a 2-pitch pitcher. Fastball, changeup. And the problem that Frank has in this particular rotation is there are a lot of 2-pitch pitchers in this rotation. And the problem with 2-pitch pitchers is if one's off, the hitters don't have to worry about that one. If you can't control the changeup, they can sit fastball all day and just let the changeups go. That happens with Strider. It happened a lot with Pablo. And you know who else it happened with? Dylan Cease. Now, he has a slider to add into it, but he's got a walk problem. That's the more of the problem with him. I get what he did here. And it's, again, a case of individually, I can see the case for these players, but the sum of it, to me, I don't particularly care for. I don't care for Strider, Cease, Pablo together.
Okay. What about the rest of the guys? Since he has, you like them more?
I was going to get to that.
He's got. Okay.
I was going to get to that. Jordan Montgomery, love it. Great pick, Frank. Jose Urquidy, I didn't really have a whole lot in on, but like it makes all the sense in the world. He's the 5-starter on a winning team. Go get it. Cal Quantrill literally fits the same mold. 3-starter on a winning team. Michael Kopech, that must be your guy. That's fine. Go like Jared Schuster. It's a Brave. Okay. Mike Clevenger, another White Sox that we don't really like. So of those, 6 or 7 starters that came after round 11, we're saying we like 3. Maybe a fourth one is good. There's probably a fourth one in there.
Right.
Pepio was the last one, by the way.
Sure. Well, we've accepted the front 3. Spencer Strider, Dylan Cease, Paulo Lopez. It doesn't get too bad after when you're talking about Montgomery, Quantrill, or Urquidy.
Right.
Those guys will be a 4 or 5. I really, truly believe that. And if he treats it, Cal Quantrill, law of averages says he will start losing at home, but he was pretty damn solid last year. So you got to feel good having Jordan Montgomery a full year in St. Louis. It works. Houston is a good team. Having Urquidy is there. It's a solid rotation.
Jordan Montgomery is the pick of his draft for me. After pick 200, he goes and gets a dude on a walk year in St. Louis. Come on, that's a no-brainer. Great pick, Frank. I think the reach is the reach Kimbrel?
Not to me. Not to me.
Okay. Is it Tepera then? Because I don't know that's
maybe it's more Tepera, but to me it's Gunnar Henderson, man, because I don't know what he is yet. That's a guy I wasn't even close to thinking about. I'm okay with not having that guy, but he believes in him and he wanted to pair it with having Santander. Maybe that was a thought in his head to put that together. So, it's a strategy. It's a specific kind of strategy. It's just, I would call that the reach. My steal actually is probably Cal Quantrill.
Yeah, same area as I'm saying with Jordan Montgomery. Like that was where he nailed it. Was that little area of Pablo? I'll say Kimbrel's fine there, but Pablo, Jordan Montgomery, Cal Quantrill, Rowdy Tellez, Jose Urquidy, those 5 picks crushed those 5 rounds.
Yeah, and I will say, like as far as potential steals, Donovan and Schwarber.
Yeah,
where he got those guys.
Didn't Donovan just go out and like have himself an opening day today? As I'm gonna wrap this up, he did a lot today. I think it was more than just a homer. It helps if I
3 for 6 with 3 runs.
Yeah, that'll do. Yeah,
it's a good start.
That'll do.
So, how do you feel about his the front 4 in the cast?
It's Goldschmidt, Schwarber, Lindor, and then one of
Reynolds or Santander or Gunnar.
Yeah, I guess if one of those 3 guys is in fact the number 4, I like it. I like it more than I've liked a lot of the teams that we're talking about, but I still don't love it because of the Schwarber strikeouts and the questionable number 4, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it totally does.
Okay.
And would you say that mine is better in Soto, Arenado, I guess Lowe and Bell, or I guess you could throw in a Nimmo or McNeil?
I'd probably make it McNeil as your 4th, and then I'd say yes. I'd say yes. A batting champion, a 300 hitter, Juan Soto, and Nolan Arenado. Yeah, that I would put up against those four. Yeah. Benji, the 2023 season is officially 1 day old now, man. And we got to watch the Mets win. We got to watch the Yankees win. Well, I got to watch the Yankees win, kind of. And we got to watch the Phillies lose, man. Are you excited for this season or what?
I think there's no question about it, man. I'm excited, obviously, about watching the Mets this year, but as a commissioner, what this is to me. Us being able to now start to break down week to week each matchup after it happens. Everyone's going to be on top of this thing, especially now, no message board. This becomes so much more important, man, as far as pod. And yeah, of course, I'm excited by this league. I'm excited by their excitement. When I get a text from those guys or a phone call and I know what it's about, I'm licking my chops, man. I always want this thing to go further than it can. And thank God, because of everybody, as far as the bigs go, this is season number 19 and off we go. We're on it again, man. And how my excitement, it's consistent, and I'm just head over heels that we're finally doing this again. We finally made it. Thank goodness.
Hell yeah. Thank every single one of you for being in this league with us. Benny, thank you for being here with me tonight. Guys, we cannot have this league without you. We are 1 day into the season. I think we were talking like another 200-ish days to go, all the way to the end of the season. Until next time, guys, it has been real. It has been fun. And every single day, it's always real fun in the bigs. We'll see you next time.